Atlus are likely the best and most interesting game development studio throughout the history of games. They've created one of the largest JRPG series ever, which has been spanned 30 long years, with some of the most beloved games, especially of the past 10 years. From the dark and depressing Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne to the bright and cheerful experiences of Persona 4. There are games for everyone no matter what they want. Rhythm games, JRPGs, fighting games, action, adventure, whatever. The influence that Atlus has had over the industry is often unheard of, but they've constantly been pushing the boundary of what a video game can be. So back in 1987, the developers over at Atlus had decided to adapt novel Digital Devil's Story, and though that name is rarely heard outside of the niche audience that played it, well, it's grown quite a bit. That game, Megami Tensei, went on to create a franchise which currently has 32 games in it. See, the variety of games underneath the Megami Tensei franchise itself is quite amazing. From the more Pokemon-ish light-hearted games for the handheld, being Devil Children, to the Persona series, which is most likely their most well-known, to games like Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, which I doubt will ever get a sequel, and is probably the best game that they've developed in the past 5 years. Let's just say it like this. They made the best video game franchise of all time, so let's analyze what made this the best. The world that it's set in. Almost every Megami Tensei game is set in a slightly fictionalized version of the real world. Though when you look at Shin Megami Tensei, it is all post-apocalyptic. When you look at Persona, it is all pre-apocalypse. And when you look at Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, I'm pretty sure that's what an actual idol's job is. But let's take a look at it like this. The world that they are set in is intertwined. If we take a look at Catherine and Persona 5, they are set in the same meta-narrative about the world, even though their franchises are completely different. Catherine is independent of a franchise, whereas Persona 5 is set internalized into the Megami Tensei and Persona franchises. And then when we look at Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, it wouldn't be too much of a stress to say that these are all set within the same world. Each of them have a slightly different tone. Though Persona 5 isn't out yet, we can see from the trailers that it is very different from the world that is in Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, being a bright and colourful and beautiful Tokyo, to Catherine, which is dark and depressing, always set around dive bars. And Persona 5 is all about the flashing lights, the large scale, and these are all the same city, in the same franchise, in the same narrative. The worlds are similar, the characters typically carry over, or have in certain situations. This is where things begin to get interesting. See, characters have carried over from Persona 3 to 4, but they've also had characters carry over from completely different game developers. Yes, if you played Shin Megami Tensei 3 in the American audience, I know what you're thinking. Dante. That's right. Dante of Devil May Cry was a protagonist in a Megami Tensei lineup game. This is an insanely large world that we're now building, because we can look at everything that interlinks with these games, and we can draw more and more lines about the world that these exist in. Though these games don't push anything technologically like graphics, or the ability to actively render shadows or anything, I believe that they really are pushing the boundary in what a video game narrative can do, especially to the Western audience. See, over here, people have a really difficult time grasping the idea of a visual novel. They think, oh, why wouldn't you just read a novel? Oh, dating sims? Those are just for loser weeaboo neckbeards, right? But really, the Persona series are visual novels. It's just people have a much easier time grasping them because of their RPG elements. So really what I believe the strongest level of innovation that Atlus is bringing is importation to the West. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, support me on Patreon, and if you didn't like it, support me on Patreon.